Cool. Well, Megan Rickerson, thanks for taking the time. And we always start out, like I said, when we talked before about what we're going to talk about today, like start out with like a personal history, a few minutes on like where you come from, both like service industry in general, and then how you wound up what you're doing right now at Someday Bar.
I grew up in Florida. I started bartending in college at Florida State, and then moved to New York with my best friend, like I guess 15 years ago, who also owns a bar, which is really funny
Okay.
because we did not set out to do that, and here we are. Um, I started waitressing in Midtown because they had this whole, New York used to be snobby about bartenders, and you had to have that whole New York experience.
Mm-hmm.
But worked my way into a bar role in the Lower East Side where I started managing, and it was the best bar job ever. Actually, I remember saying like when I went down there, I was like, "This is my last bar job. Like I'm not,"
Mm-hmm.
because I moved to New York to do makeup, and I was like, "This is my last bar job ever." And technically, it kind of was like last bar job that I was working for anybody else. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Where was that at?
because it was called 1 Mile House. I was there for
Oh
10
yeah.
years. Yeah.
We've I
So
actually interviewed Jared on this before. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I didn't, but I'll
no,
have to. Jerry and I are
yeah,
still very close. We're
nice,
still very good
awesome.
friends. Yeah. I mean, he hates it when I say this because he's just a nice dude. But like a lot of what I have is because of his guidance and mentorship, and like he's actually kind of the one that planted the idea in my brain to open a bar. Just
Mm.
like it was kind of, I don't remember the exact words. It was like, "You're kind of good at this, have you ever thought about it?" And so we opened in July of 2019. It's my
Hmm.
Someday bar that I finally opened. Um, and then obviously COVID hit 6 months later. So I
Totally
have
terrible timing.
horrible timing.
Yeah.
But we're still around. Um,
And
yeah,
what kind of a bar is it? Do you want to just kind of lay out what you guys
yeah.
have?
It's funny because I started out thinking that it was going to be another 1 mile, and in many ways it is. It's like a neighborhood bar, which is what I wanted. But I thought we were going to be like nerdy craft beer focused, and we are. I mean, we have 140 cans, but like we're just kind of an everyone bar. Like we have a
Hmm.
solid cocktail menu, we have good bar food, we do a ton of events, we do drag shows, lots of fundraisers. So I guess this is like my version of 1 Mile House, but
Okay.
definitely more cocktail focused than I ever thought. But I think that
Hmm.
was kind of an opportunity cost of the pandemic
Yeah.
almost.
Do you mean like
So
because you guys had to learn how to do it because you wanted to sell cocktails to go and cocktail kits and stuff like that? Is that what you mean?
I know, I mean, 1 Mile had a full bar. It's just that I thought that the entire focus was going to be beer. And then,
Hmm.
we do like some vodka sodas on the side and like, the things like that. And I think everybody was stressed during COVID.
Totally.
So they were drinking heavier items than, just beer. But
Right.
we were doing cocktails to go in like heat sealed pouches. Um,
Oh, cool.
so like a food saver and putting a boulevardier in. And, every other bar in the neighborhood, those first 3 to 4 months closed except for us, like in our direct area. We didn't
Okay.
have the ability. We didn't have any money to close.
Yeah,
And
right.
I had to demonstrate to my landlord that we were trying, to do anything so they would work with us. So
Hmm.
we had to get really creative, and a lot of it was in cocktails. Um,
Nice.
it was just,
Got it.
I hate the word, but I had to pivot. I hate that
Yeah.
word. That's PTSD from COVID, is pivot.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we tried to do all sorts of stuff at beer menus just to try
Yeah.
to, you know, stick around, help, I guess. So you're on Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What? I used to live on State and Nevins, that corner.
Oh,
You guys,
we're on
that's like right
Atlantic
there,
between
right?
Hoyt and Bond. Yeah, it's so
Oh, okay.
close.
Well, I think we moved away in 2018, so just missed you.
Okay.
But that would have been nice to have you guys in the neighborhood instead of walking all the way to Bar Great Harry or to St. Gambrinus.
Yeah,
R.I.P.
so I know. Well, now it is RIP, and I love Ray, but Hops Hill, Joe from Hops Hill
Yeah,
took it over,
I
and
saw
Ray
that.
even does shifts there. Ray helps
Oh,
them and
really?
does like picks up shifts. Yeah, it's like the best case scenario that could have possibly happened, you know,
Hmm.
because I'm also friends with Joe and I'm friends with Ray, and it's just like it's nice to have a really great neighborhood of people to take care of each other. And like
Totally.
my bartenders were working there and we were it's just great that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And it's also great for the people who want to drink at two different places that have great stuff.
Right. Like you know, we serve a different purpose.
Hmm.
We sell same product but we're different two different bars, so it's really
Yeah.
nice. I can be like, "Oh, have you checked out here?" and
Hmm.
vice versa. I mean, Ray and Heather used to come down for cocktails all the time because they're like, "We don't
Nice.
have liquor. We
Right.
have beer."
Yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah, I bartended there for a couple of years when I was out there, and it was just
really?
like, well, yeah, yeah. So I was at beer menus, and then on Friday or Saturday nights, I depended on the week, but whenever like Kyle or Carly wasn't working, like I was working for a period of time there.
my
But
my boyfriend was picking up shifts at Hops Hill Atlantic when they first opened before he got his full
got
time
it.
job. Yeah. See,
That's funny.
it's all just like a community. And I used to years ago when I was at 1 Mile, I used to fill in at Hops Hill Atlantic or Clinton Hill.
Right. Okay.
So
That's
it's
cool.
incestuous in a great way.
Totally. Um, so how's it going now? Are you guys feeling like you're out of like what's it called? Terminal velocity? Like you're out of the gravitational pull of the original part of opening the place?
I mean, that's such a loaded question because I feel like you fix if anyone has ever owned or run a bar, it's like you solve one problem just to uncover three more problems. I mean, we're definitely not in COVID times, which is great, but
Hmm.
I remember back in the day, you know, in this industry, it's like you knew your slow seasons. Okay, you knew that from July 4th to about Labor Day, it was just going to be crickets unless you had a rooftop or you know some kind of thing that really drew people in, and you could
Hmm.
warn your staff, you're like, these are our slow times. You know, January, we had one of our best Januaries last January, which I kept being like, what is happening, like in the best way. But the problem is when those great months pop up and you're like, this is awesome, the same can be said for those months that you expect to be awesome and then they're not. For example, like September, October so far has been way less than last year.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, I don't feel weird saying that out loud because I've spoken to so many other bar owners that are like,
And
yeah,
it's
we're
like
down.
across the country. It's like across the country too. Like we've been hearing from people who are like, we need to stop paying for beer menus because we've had like a terrible last couple months. Definitely
It's
like
so
stings
weird.
harder in like the bigger cities where it's just like you are like on such a treadmill. Like if you're in, Ann Arbor, Michigan, it's a different situation than if you're in,
Yeah.
the Mission District in San Francisco or something. But
Well, and
yeah,
that's
it's
the whole
weird.
thing is like you just it kind of feels like there's no um you don't have pars anymore, you know? And it's funny, I'm trying to schedule things and I'm like, let me look at my sales from last year, and it's like all of my historical data is pretty much COVID.
Hmm.
Or
Right.
and like I was trying to look at something from the year before and I'm like, oh, there was a hurricane this weekend. And it's just like funny to look back at historical data and you're like, this actually is so unhelpful
So
because
there's
it's like
no
there
normal.
actually
Yeah.
there's no normal. And it's like really interesting and almost a little, I mean, it's scary because you're like, how do you move and what direction do you take? Um, but I think with COVID, especially, we got very lucky in a sense. Like when we opened, we were open for 6 months. We didn't have um, schedules and routines and pars and like, or honestly, like bad behaviors or things we were so set into, which I feel
Hmm.
like was very lucky for us because you know
Yeah.
you have bars and restaurants that are open for 20 years. You tell them to pivot and they're like, we've been doing this for 20 years,
Yeah. A
whereas
lot
like
of the
we didn't
people,
have that.
totally. Yeah. Like the bartenders are manager has been there for 15 years doing things the same way. And it's like, what do you mean we have to like launch online sales? We've never done,
Yeah.
like some
I
like
feel like we got
56-year
lucky.
old manager. Yeah.
Exactly. And, thankfully I was younger then. Mentally, I'm like
Hmm.
90 years old now, but um,
Yeah. I think